Hey everyone, and welcome to the Weekly Marketer Podcast. Every single week, we interview deep dive experts in one of the many fields of marketing to drop huge knowledge bombs from the best of the best and teach you how to take your marketing skills to the next level. This is episode 11, and I'm sitting with Gareth Sutcliffe, who is an expert at social media marketing and building and scaling agencies. He's the founder of Blue Social, which he built and scaled. Presently, he's the paid social account director for Lexus and Toyota UK. Gareth, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you. Obviously, we've chatted many times online, so it's nice for have a good voice conversation and just discuss the state of play. And yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we've definitely met on Facebook, which probably isn't usually on the up and up, but we know each other from kind of the Facebook ad buyers group and ad leaks as well, I believe, where, you know, we've had a lot of lively conversations with each other, with other people. More specifically, we tend to agree on most things. But yeah, you are right. We do contribute quite well. Yeah, I think so. Although we might have to change the name of Facebook ad buyers to "Why was my account banned?" Recently, but.
Don't get me started on that again.
Yeah. So what can you tell us a little bit more about your background? Obviously, you know, built an agency, which is incredibly impressive, you know, and now working for a huge brand, as we said, the paid social account director. I mean, those are really impressive. How'd you kind of get started? How'd you get into marketing and social media specifically?
Social I fell into, really. It was more of a case of when I was at college even. So college in the UK time is sixth form, which is 16 to 18 years old. And at college, I started getting involved with nightclubs and going out and whatnot. And it just really remotely started from putting on parties at college, charging £3 a ticket. There's 300 people could go, make 900 quid, blah, 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 blah. So that was my first sort of throwaway into business. And this was sort of 2007, 2008, really. So this is when Facebook was starting to have a real good traction. MySpace was probably dying out slightly, and obviously that's when people started emigrating over to Facebook. From there, went to university, was involved a lot with music and DJing, as well as nightclub events. And during that time, just learned myself really how to promote myself and more so my events through Facebook, specifically through Facebook. At the end of that, so probably came to an end around 2012 or 2013. All the money that me and my business partner had made, we put into putting on a music festival. So essentially just trying to grow it and actually make it happen. We're not the first to admit that we lost all of our money. It was a great day. It was a great day, but it was a very big learning experience. And it was shortly after that, sort of left that, and the other two guys sort of carried on with it. From that, sort of social media and paid was just sort of more becoming prominent around that time, and that's essentially put two and two together and realised that if this restaurant can give me X amount of money for X amount of my time every month, I can fit in X amount of these clients to do it on myself on a weekly basis. That's how the agency was born. So 2014, moved to London from where I was at university, and grew the agency from there, and that's where we've got to now.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. That's quite the journey. So it's interesting. I find a lot of the best marketers kind of start from that place of figuring it out themselves as a necessity.
Exactly. What I tend to find is, although I did go to university, I didn't do very well at university. Actually, in fact, I didn't actually complete university. But I believe the best marketers, and not just marketers, but the best business people come out of people that have had to do it themselves from no money, no experience, and worked on the job. I always find that if I was going to employ someone, that's definitely a skill that I'd look for, is someone that can put their best foot forward with their own money and their own time and really apply themselves. I tend to find that those people are, I know it's a big generalization, but they tend to be a lot more on the ball of things as opposed to maybe someone, again, I'm completely generalizing here, but that have gone the traditional route of college, and then they've done a university degree and they've done a year's placement at a firm, and then they start and they sort of graduate way up within the business. So it depends. It's a big generalization, but I tend to find that the people that within my sort of circle who learn to do it themselves tend to do really, really well in that case.
Well, I mean, I think that it really comes down to, when it's your money on the line, right? And it's the difference between doing it well or, not being able to take like a vacation that year or whatever. Like the stakes become very high, and people kind of learn from early days on, to be thoughtful with their experimentation and things like that.
Exactly that. It's very easy to spend someone else's money very, very quickly, but if you're spending 10 grand or 100 grand's worth of your client's money, yeah, you have to be careful. But I tell you what, if you're spending £10,000 of your own actual money and that's all you've got, that's a completely different story. And I guarantee you that if it's your last 10 grand, you're going to spend every single penny of that so much more thoughtfully, I think, than you would spending someone else's money.
Right, absolutely. So, this is interesting. I love kind of how your background went from, doing it for yourself for music festivals and then starting an agency and now kind of working, on the big brand side. Can you talk about kind of the differences in those experiences, like kind of what, the perspectives that you get from the various kind of approaches of like, being a founder or whatever and working on like social marketing or marketing in general from that perspective, then going to an agency side and then kind of being in-house, as it were. Kind of what do you see as like kind of the biggest differences between those perspectives?
Well, from my perspective, from sort of a social media perspective, which is where I'd say my experience lies the most, it's changed so much anyway over the last 4 or 5 years that even if my experience, what it was like 5 years ago, would be completely different to that person going right through it now, just purely from the perspective of there's way more tools available, there's more a crowded market. You could arguably say that viewership, especially with Facebook, is down. So it's a completely different marketplace anyway. And I guess the agency side, it grew organically. I mean, it was never forced. It happened because I happened to be good at it, and I had a good team around me that I was able to help exponentially grow that agency. It ultimately boils down to spending your own money. I think we just touched on it just now, but I think that really is the case. I think if you're really, really super keen to grow an agency or to grow a music festival or to start a plumbing business, whatever it is, you learn very, very quickly that learning to do things. I'm not knocking other agencies. There's nothing wrong with it, but learn the skills yourself, and that's what I would say: is learn the skills you need to do to grow the business and how you need to do it. Because then you ultimately, it not necessarily means that you're going to then do the work yourself. But if you're getting reported back work and you're having conversations with a potential agency that you're going to work with, you have such a better understanding, and you're going to have a better relationship with their agency when you've got an understanding of actually how things work. And you only have to look at online sort of Facebook groups and people that I've worked with previously, and you can see that if just they had a little bit extra bit of knowledge about what they were paying someone to do, the relationship would be 10 times better than what it was. Well, that's what I would definitely say.
Yeah, well, that's been my experience as well, right? Where, the best people that I've worked with have done it with them for themselves to some degree, right? And they've been able to, so we've actually been able to like talk shop, where I think that even if you're somebody that says, okay, I'm not going to go all the way down and be an expert Facebook ads marketer, even having just kind of a base understanding of it so that you can talk shop with like the expert that you end up hiring is incredibly invaluable. Just because you don't come from the place of having to actually come and like start from zero and explain, oh, you need a certain amount of conversions a day and things like that. And this is how the math works in order to figure out, kind of what, it kind of amazes me the number of people that don't kind of think it. And maybe this is just me being blind because I'm in the industry and I think about this every day. And it's to the point where I can just pretty much like pull out a napkin and just come up with, kind of random numbers.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
it's kind of incredible how, when you start talking in that sort of language and you can look at things from a metrics based perspective, how much better it is, even if you aren't aiming to be an expert in the field.
What we did, and what was one of the things that it was ultimately invaluable for us, especially when we're working with companies and brands that weren't necessarily big agencies or big brands with sort of internal marketing teams, was we just created a sort of it was originally a 10-page, but I think it grew to about a 20-page document or a booklet that we would give to people when we first started working with them. This is from sort of agency days, and just have as much information in there as possible about how social works. So you're almost giving them not a expert analysis, but a really broad understanding of what the metrics and what we're aiming to do. And it's a general pack for anyone that you have to create it for every single person. But they explained what the work we're going to be reporting on and what that actually means and how that translates into work and how all these different attribution models of how paid fits in the general marketing mix. What other KPIs should you be looking at? I'm a firm believer in that just because you see a conversion in Facebook Ads Manager doesn't mean that the ultimate influence has happened because of that ad. What you want to be looking at as other metrics is in in a free tool like Google Analytics. We should be looking at things like, are more people searching from a brand? So is organic Google searches up? Is direct web traffic up? Because ultimately that's what tends to happen is if I see something on Facebook or Instagram or whatever channel and I haven't got time to click on that ad, or I'm on the London Underground, for instance, and there's no thing. I'll just remember the brand name, or I'll remember the website name. ABC.com, for instance. I just then go on the internet and go, oh, okay. When I get home, for instance, ABC, I remember them, and then you go on the website. So looking at other metrics and letting the client understand, there's not just the be all and end all isn't just reach, impressions, CPM, conversions. Like there's a lot more that social helps implement. And once you have that conversation with a client, what we used to find was once you have an understanding of that, they're not just looking at the reports from a linear perspective, this is what it is. No, there's actually a wider help that social drives to everyone. There's not just a DR, treating the person as like the customer as a number, and you're just another person that comes through my store or just comes to my brand who's just, there's a lot more to it, and being inquisitive about what the actual customer journey is. Sometimes there's multiple touch points. I mean, we've had many a discussion about that before, but yeah, it's letting the client know, being transparent as possible from the starting point, but managing expectations, but also being transparent from what we're actually going to be reporting on, what we're actually planning on doing, and what you should be looking out for, and that gives them a better understanding. For instance, you have 1 week, or you report on your clients weekly that we had our conversions are down 50% this week. There's natural fluctuations, but they have an understanding from the previous week or the week before of why this is changing, what are we doing, and just being completely transparent, massively, especially to people that come to you as a client who have absolutely no idea. The classic example, I heard Facebook marketing is really good, I want it for my business. That's the classic line that you get from people, and just educating them slightly just makes the journey, and it keeps the customer retention is just the most important thing. Once you pay to acquire that customer, the longer you keep them and the longer you can keep them on board, the more money you're going to make. That's just the simple way. That's a simple way of looking at it.
Yeah, I read something that like 90 some odd percent of your profits are going to come from repeat customers. And I think that's as Facebook ads continue to climb in price and such, and you see kind of a wave of, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this as well, but kind of a wave of drop shippers just dying off in mass, just as, kind of customer feedback becomes more important and like the media is starting to be priced more appropriately and things like that. You see kind of these one and done sort of transactions. A lot of them, I mean, some of them are still doing fine, and I don't mean to disparage the entire industry, but a lot of them are kind of falling off because they have no customer retention because they're just selling random crap from Alibaba.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been massively exposed to dropshipping. It might be more of a US thing, but UK is prominent enough from my experience anyway. It's probably massive, but I've never really delved into it. But yeah, you are right. I think what people are realizing is that I can buy a fake watch for £8 delivery for free, but it's going to take me 28 days to get it. What people tend to forget is that Facebook is being built to be a play and pay service, so which means it has so much more volume and makes it easier for people that don't understand it to do really, really, really well with it, and that's great. I think that's fantastic. Getting more people into digital, more people into marketing, and getting their businesses seen, which is great. But ultimately, what has happened, and it's not necessarily strictly for dropshipping businesses, but they're just not building brands. I think that's the most important thing. Not from an agency perspective, but from a sort of a business to customer sort of business that it has e-commerce and things like that. That no one's building brands, and that's why dropshippers are falling off as costs are rising. They've built their customer base based on people that are not loyal. They're only loyal to the price. And before, they didn't really care if it was a 28-day thing, because if you were the first person to sell fake Nike shoes from AliExpress or something like that, then people don't really mind the 28-day wait. But actually now you can get them 7 days. The customer feedback is really important. Like in the UK, Trustpilot is a massive thing. And it was building that brand, and social is got so many tools for it. And it's an amazing place, and brands have been built off the back of social. But people that, because they see it as a pay and play service, which it is, no one's building that brand, and that's why you see businesses in e-commerce and store come and go very, very quickly. Is because they just generally they haven't built a customer base up. And people will say, "Oh, well, how would you build a brand from a drop shipping store or a store that just sells everything and everything?" So why don't you just specialize in a specific niche, or take 10 or 15 of the products, the products that you sell on your website, on your dropshipping website, and make a website for every single one of those niches. And then you can specialize, and that only makes your targeting and your actual paid social work a lot more straightforward, because you've already got an audience for those people. You can sell, say, dog accessories, for instance. Your target has become 10 times more lasered, because you know you've got an audience there, and you're building a brand around the stuff you sell, as opposed to just selling the next thing that's the hottest thing that's on sale, which I think is generally isn't the right way to go and do it. You can, if you're a massive supermarket like Asda or ASOS, or in the US and Canada, want like a Walmart and things like that, they're known as a general store, and they've got a brand that people trust, so they can bring in new products all the time. Jimmy, who's running a store, people don't have loyalty to it, and that's what we need. That's what needs to be built, and that's what people tend to forget with paid, is that it's just a transactional thing, whereas actually your lifetime value of a customer is by far the most important thing, but from an agency perspective and from an e-commerce perspective.
Absolutely. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that it's kind of what you're saying to me, and what it sounds like is, it's kind of funny, but there's all these fancy tools and everything out there, and paid social is huge, and it's going to continue to be huge, and it'll probably grow massively as even compared to where it is now. But the interesting thing is that kind of the more it evolves and the more prominent it gets, the more it goes back to kind of your traditional marketing lessons of brand building and positioning and messaging and everything else. And so it's kind of a fascinating kind of like, you end up right back where you started in a way. So I kind of want to take a step back a little bit. And so we've kind of been talking about the way that social's been evolving and things like that, and kind of, the right way of thinking about social. Let's talk a little bit about building an agency. What do the early days of that look like? Because I think a good portion of my audience is folks that are, maybe not necessarily specifically in paid social, but, I got a reach out yesterday from somebody who was trying to learn Facebook ads from some of the videos that I make, right? And they were like a video and photography shop, right? And so I think there's a lot of agency owners out there, and kind of you get a lot of the same sort of questions coming up. But I'd love to hear kind of your story of starting that, and what is it actually like building an agency?
Yeah, tough gig is probably the best way to describe it. Ultimately, started off. I'll give you sort of an overview of how it sort of grew. So after the festival had finished, I had a hotel restaurant, and then a Mexican takeaway restaurant. So there was my first two sort of base clients as a starting point.
My first was a bagel shop. So
food, yeah, food, because they're great. I think restaurants, if you can, or most people can, if you create a funnel for restaurants and think gyms and things like that, like you can grow a bit of agency just by doing that. It was phenomenal. I mean, we had loads of different restaurant brands that we work with in the UK, absolutely loads. But ultimately, we did a lot of networking in London. And what we tend to find was that all it was accountants who wanted to go there to try and sell to us, not to be sold to. Basically, that's generally the consensus what I found.
Yeah, I don't know if you have like the equivalent of Chamber of Commerce or anything like that. In the US we have that, and I go there and it's insurance agents and accountants and lawyers and bankers all trying to sell you on their services. So we basically all just trade cards and then go home with no new clients.
Exactly that. I don't think we ever picked up one client from networking that we did, and we were paid to be members of these different clubs and whatnot. It was a tough gig, and networking for me, I don't know, it's a big no-no for me. It was a big waste of time spending 2-3 hours going to something after work or during the office hours where you could actually be doing better. How we grew was one website. by far the big thing. And actually, the website that I built to start, predating the website that's now on the agency before I left, we actually saw quite a significant decrease. We actually paid a really good web agency to build our website for us, but actually the website we built on I built personally on Squarespace, was converted a lot better. No idea why, but it was just from the case, I think, because building the website yourself and it's your agency, and it sort of goes back to what I was saying before about learning the skill yourself. You have an understanding of what people want to see, because ultimately, although I was starting an agency, I could be a recipient of an agency in my prior work when I owned a music festival and nightclub event. So I was thinking, what do I want to see? What do I want a prospective client to see about us? And ultimately, this has to be the copy, just as simple and as easy to understand as possible. Address every single issue that you believe that the client coming to your website is going to have, and give them that information. I never mentioned price on the website ever. We put a starting from, but ultimately that's all we had. We never put a sort of a price list on there. But yeah, firstly, website is the most important thing. Just literally answer all the questions that you believe that person wants to see.
So just to kind of dig in on that a little bit, are you saying that like when it comes to websites, it seems like function is much more important than form? Like really get deep into the content of what people want to see, let them almost completely vet you before they ever pick up the phone. And while obviously a good looking website's important, it only is so to a degree. Like that's the, Flash and having like not literally Flash the technology, but having like a very beautiful site that says very little isn't particularly useful.
No, of course not. I tend to find that people tend to get so sucked up in, we need to have loads of blog posts up there. We need to have all of this. We need to have all of that. It's like, well, no, the content of your website is ultimately the most important thing. And people are looking for an agency, for instance. Everyone take a step back. And as a person that owns a business, I've been told by someone that I need to do Facebook marketing or Twitter marketing or whatever it is. What's the first step they do? They go on Google, they type in social media agency near me or social media manager near me or whatnot.
How to run Facebook ads or something.
How to run Facebook ads or something along those lines. And what do is they click the 5 or the 6 top websites on Google. Anyone wants to disagree with me on that, they're more welcome to, but we know that is the absolute case. We went from page 2 on Google for social media agency or social media management London from first to second, and our inquiry rate almost doubled overnight. It's a case of they want to see those things, and they're going to send inquiries to 5 or 6 of those people with copy and paste message into your contact us form or to your phone call or whatnot. The website needs to be as easy to understand as possible so people can understand, okay, I see how these guys work. Then they have a better understanding. When they call you, they go, what you want them to say is, oh yeah, I saw on your website you do this. Brilliant. You're already in there. That's probably the biggest thing. But we all know, and you probably know as well, is that it's all well and good having a website, but you need people to see it. And I know you've messaged me privately, we were talking about this before, but Google paid search ads for us were just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It's a highly competitive market out there, and going back to what we said before about how Facebook is a pay and play, or that's mostly every social media channel is a pay and play sort of built to be like that, which means there's a lot of people in the marketplace to offer those services. Google paid ads is the best way of doing it. You're going to get seen by so many people because as long as you outbid your competition, as long as you're on top of that one or two on Google, that is ultimately how you're going to win. That was it. And from a starting off point agency where we had no real big clients at the starting point, I mean, we had absolutely no one that you would really sort of shout about in terms of put us on the 11 playing field with some of the sort of the medium to large-ish style agencies. And ultimately, we won some of our biggest clients through Google. We won a 6-figure deal with Russian Airlines, for instance, pre-World Cup through Google Ads. We won Lotus Cars, which is a huge UK sports car brand that we won. We won a contract with Volvo Construction through Google Ads. So yeah.
Turns out the people that work at these companies are humans that do most of the same sorts of things the rest of us do, which is when they don't know something, they turn to Google and they try and figure it out.
Honestly, and then once you get to, we noticed a sort of a threshold. I think the first major, we did a fair bit of work with a couple of BMW motorbike franchises. It wasn't directly with BMW, but it was with a few of their sort of really successful franchises in the UK. So we're technically working with BMW, but not quite working with BMW. But it was, we won Lotus Cars, which is a big standout brand. We worked with a couple of, you probably might not have heard of them, but have you heard of an airline brand called EasyJet?
Yeah, I take an EasyJet actually.
Yeah. They have a subsidiary hotel brand called Easy Hotels, and that was sort of one of our sort of first big-ish wins. And Lotus Cars was probably our biggest win. And so what you'll find is that you go past a certain threshold of, oh, now you're reputable. Do you know what I mean? You go past the point where you've gone from having a couple of small client brand names on your website to, oh, now you've got a multi-million pound car brand, and now you've got a multi-billion pound airline that you're now providing services for, and that just changes the complexion of it. You have to do good work. Obviously, that's a really important thing. I think just being transparent, but you also need the website to be looking smart. But coming from a person that provides, or an agency that we had that provided social media services, the number one place that we won business was from Google. Like there's going to be people, there's going to be brands out there that are unattainable for people like us. You're looking at, the Delta Airlines, this world of the US comparison, and the British Airways and things like that. And they're always going to go with the big media firms. They're always going to go with a WPP brand or, Group M, or, I believe that there's a cycle those brands use. And this is why I'm now working with Toyota and Lexus. There's a cycle of who these brands work with. And this is quite a closed club to a certain degree.
Yeah. I was speaking with an agency owner who actually sold to WPP. And it was an interesting kind of argument that he made. And he basically, I said, why are they going with these agencies where they know there's a lot of overhead and everything else? And he just looked at me and said, throat to choke. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, if they mess up, they know they've got the assets to come after them. That's why they won't even consider boutique agencies for a lot of those. He goes, they know they've got big insurance policies. They know that if the contract's not fulfilled, they'll be able to pay out basically, and that they'll make it right with tons and tons of free media. So it's almost a non-starter to try and even go after a lot of those larger brands.
Of course not. I think just I'm not the biggest fan of Gary Vaynerchuk's sort of message.
He is probably the most contentious person. I've never spoken to the man, but he's the most contentious person in my life.
I've never. There's nothing wrong with what I'm not knocking him as a person. Maybe slightly his message can come across a little bit. I don't necessarily agree with his message sometimes, but he put something up about that the other day. Was the problem we've got is as entrepreneurs and as people that want to start marketing agencies or start any business really, that everyone wants to be like Facebook and Uber. Everyone's aiming to be that £1 billion company, and then they're getting really annoyed when they don't get to those points. That, would you be happy with earning £500,000 a year? I'd be absolutely over the moon. Do you know what I mean? Not £10 million. Do you know what I mean? It comes down to there's enough business out there to not have to think about those huge brands. Some people do break through that threshold, but things like Google ads and that sort of stuff, as long as you're there, as long as you're consistent, and you don't break the mold, and people are going to notice the brand name. You maybe work with a little bit of a PR agency, might get you a couple of guest blogs here and there. Or we went on the BBC News on World Emoji Day once, just to talk for 5 or 10 minutes about World Emoji Day and how emojis have done it. And we didn't necessarily see a spike in our conversions off the back of that. But yeah, ultimately, good website and good Google ads. That's really all you want. What we would have potentially done is maybe created specific websites for specific specific pages for specific niches on the website, and then ran Google ads to that. That was probably the next step, but ultimately I've left now, so we didn't actually get to that point. But yeah, things like that, like Google is your friend. That is literally you don't need to spend money on holding networking events, because no one cares at networking events. That's the long and short of it. People are just there to either get free shit or to try and sell you something, and people are wise to that. I wouldn't waste your money on that. Is make sure you are there on Google, because people are Google. You can even load up Google and type in what is the search demand for this in my local area, and it will tell you all the people that are searching for it. So the demand is there. You can pick up the phone and call people and whatnot, and we did do a bit of that. But ultimately, what we found was a bit of a waste of time, because who answers the phone to anyone these days? I don't answer the phone. People get scared when their doorbell rings these days, let alone picking up the phone.
You know, so I mean, I do a lot of click to call ads.
Oh,
to
really?
be fair, 70% of yeah. So that's like my main thing actually is Google click to call ads
Oh,
and
yeah, of course.
Facebook click to call. Well, yeah, it works really well actually. 70% of people prefer to speak over the phone. I think it's because of all of the like fancy funnels and everything that everybody else is set up. They kind of just want to talk to a person. That said, it works really well for the niche that I'm in. But yeah, it's interesting.
I
So,
no, I agree. I think people love picking up the phone, but they want to pick up the phone on their own accord. I think
right, yeah, they don't want the cold call. So that is
no,
that is kind of the opposite, right? Where it's my clients are picking up the phone, they want the phone to ring, and then the people that are calling them, they're potential customers or whatever. Yeah, they're typing. They're the ones that are saying, "Yeah, I want to call this person." So everybody's kind of opting in to that experience.
exactly that. That's ultimately what people want. Is people are busy enough as it is, especially other business owners or marketing people in other businesses. They haven't got time to be fielding calls from John's Facebook marketing agency who thinks they can improve their conversion rate by 20%. The demand is already there for it. You just have to look at search volumes, look at how many people are searching for what services, things like not just a standard social media agency near me or social media agency London. It's things like who is run my Facebook ads, how do I run Facebook ads, or whatever ads. These sort of search terms were just really phenomenal for us. And geographically, these queries might be slightly different, but have a look as much as possible is what I would say. Is just look at that demand, because people are going to Google it, and even look at it. For instance, if people near you are searching learn to do Facebook ads, for instance, or learn to do Instagram ads. Brilliant. The demand's there. Run a face-to-face course, for instance. I mean, I don't agree in the slightest when it comes to people that sell online courses, but online face-to-face coaching, if there's demand for it, provide the service, because you already know what it is. Don't be pigeonholed into, we just run Facebook ads for restaurants. Open yourself up. The demand is literally there, and as long as you're consistent. Don't get it wrong, we sat there, for a couple months on end. Sometimes we sat there months on end and thinking, God, we're not going to get another inquiry again, are we? We're not going to get another client. What's going to happen? Like we did, and sometimes you just sitting there scratching your head, and then you get 3 or 4 inquiries, and one of them is Russian Airlines, or one of them is Lotus Cars, and then you're just like, okay, it's consistency. But when people stop forgetting, people are just not. They're not robots. They're actual people like me and you, and their buying habits are changing. They're always different. Not one person's the same to other. That's the best way of thinking about it. It's just being consistent, being there, doing good work, and when people come to look for you, have you set everything up in place? And you don't need a fancy funnel. Like, this is what drives you up the wall about some agency owners or people who want to start selling courses, for instance. You're just treating people like a number. Like, stage 1 of my funnel, then they're going to get an email from me, and then they're going to get a 50% off voucher sent to me, and then I'm going to call them and get like it's not a process. That these people you're trying to talk to and get money out of and provide services are actually they're people. They're human beings, and we get so I'm maybe generalizing, but what I tend to find and what I can see from various groups that I'm a member of online and other people in the industry that are sort of looking to improve what they offer is that just treat people like human beings, and respect their buying cycle, and respect that demand fluctuates, and people don't want to be shoved down a 5-stage funnel getting battered by emails left, right, and center. They want the information they want to hear. If they want to speak to you, they'll speak with you, and once they speak with you, give them more information on what they want, and that generally tends to work.
I kind of find that a shotgun approach really works well for a lot of this sort of stuff too, where like I tend to agree, especially around professional services. Like, trying to force somebody into a funnel is difficult. I mean, it's definitely doable, right?
But, of course it is.
Like I put out, I think over 20 hours worth of videos on how to do Facebook ads in like a very granular sort of way, right? And it always kind of amazes me because I just put it out there for free, right? Just like want to help people kind of learn. But I don't like make money on it. I guess if I make money, it's, people will like book one-on-one kind of calls, right? After watching some videos for like specific, whatever they're working on. And so I've found though that it's always kind of interesting where people come in, because I'll ask, oh, which video did you watch that kind of led you to me? And it's just it's fascinating seeing like all the different kind of ways. Well, I watched this video and then I watched this video and then I saw you on Reddit and I decided to reach out, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Nobody's the same. Some people need to, once you've sent them a proposal, for instance, or you proposed or responded to a brief or whatnot, sometimes it takes them 3 weeks to get back to you. Some people get back to you within a day. We've had people that we spoke to at 9 o'clock and they were a client by 5 o'clock. We've had some people that we spoke to in January and didn't become a client until December. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had one of those too. I had a company that I sent a proposal to and I followed up 8 times with. And they were like, "Oh yeah, we're still thinking about it." And then, after 3 months, I just kind of let it go. And then 6 months after that, they came to me and said, "Okay, we're ready."
Exactly. Sometimes that's just not it's just not a good way of doing it, because it does smell of desperation sometimes, is when you're just getting constantly bombarded with calls and emails. I've made a decision yet. What are you thinking? You're going to do it. You're going to do this. We want to give you a discount on the first month. Just, we had a rule that we chase people after a proposal. We chase them 3 times, and that was it. It was a phone call and then an email if they didn't reply. And then we do one 3 days later, just a phone call and an email if they hadn't responded at that point. And then after 7 days, if they hadn't replied at that point, say, "Hey guys, we left you the proposal now. Any feedback you've got, please let us know. If not, we'll look forward to speaking to you in the near future," for instance. And that would be that. Whereas I've done it where, for instance, where I'm not that skilled when it comes to sort of SEO, for instance. We fielded a couple of people to manage our SEO perspective once we established ourselves to be a decent point, and we had a decent understanding of what we were doing. And might be personal preference, but we were getting calls every day or from the same people going, "Made a decision yet? What we seen our proposal? What else can we do?" Sort of thing. And it's a little bit off-putting. I think that how you're perceived, and this goes back to it again. We're talking about like how brand and people building brands and things like that. Like, do you want to be associated with the people that just don't stop barraging with calls all the time? Because people do talk in different industries, and just keeping the distance, and not treating people like a funnel. Just because Salesforce or Zoho has told you haven't called up this person for the last 3 days doesn't mean you have to bombard them with calls and emails until they reply. So I was always a firm believer in that, and if it was meant to happen, it was going to happen. As long as you've given them the best proposal you can give to them, or the best presentation that you can give to them, you've informed them and been as transparent as possible about your work and how you're going to do things from the get go. If they don't want to be a client, calling them 10 times in 10 days probably doesn't mean they're going to be a client either. You can have an understanding of how something's gone. Like previously, like I know I've gone into pitches, and you're probably the same as well. You've gone into pitches, or you've gone into sending briefs, and you send it over, and you just go, "We know 110% that we've just won that client," or "We just know that you haven't won it." For instance, there is times where you think you've won it and you don't, but the majority of the time, people like us tend to have an understanding. But if you've given a pitch and they haven't replied to your last 10 emails or your last 10 phone calls, they're probably saying that they probably don't want to work with you. So don't keep badgering them down to get phone calls, because this is not a good program. They guarantee them they definitely won't call you back again.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can kind of tell by the mood in the room usually how it's going to go even before it's over. I've been 15 minutes into, like an hour-long meeting, and I'm like, "Oh, we're not going to get this client. This isn't happening." So
when they start asking difficult questions from the starting point, you're just like, "Oh, I guess this is going to be a long
they interrupt the first presentation to start grilling you on some specific, like very specific point, and it's like, "Oh wow, this isn't going to work out at all." So
if only you could just turn around and go, "Actually, guys, it's probably isn't for you," and walk out.
Bad culture, just like Silicon Valley, you just gotta slap the table. You go, "You know what? Bad culture fit. Get up and walk out." So it's like your best shot at that point. So, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of actionable takeaways here. I think that the biggest thing that you keep coming back to is just focus less on, style and more on kind of the substance when it comes to any of these things. You can hammer people on email and phone, and you can do all of these fancy things or whatever, but ultimately they just want somebody that they're able to work with.
Yeah. people work with, people they can work with, and someone they can ultimately they can trust. I think is the thing, and yeah, just don't treat people like numbers. They're not just a number in your funnel. At the end of the day, these are actually real people, and you probably work with people that they've got a £5,000 paid social budget, for instance, which in the grand scheme of things isn't huge, but to that person, that could be their last 5 grand they've got in their business account. So, they want someone they can trust, and someone who's not going to batter them with information, and they want to have it be as transparent and manage their expectations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I've got a handful of questions that I've got from my listeners. We'll get into those, and we can yeah. So I'm a young social media marketer building an agency. I want to choose restaurants as a niche. Should I choose a specific type of restaurant, or should I do restaurants in general? How important is a niche, and how niche should you be?
Um, don't overcomplicate yourself. If you're going to do restaurants, do restaurants. There's obviously within that, there's difference to people that do takeaways to sit down restaurants, for instance, is probably the major thing. There's obviously upmarket and sort of the £100 per head restaurants, and there's the £20 a head sort of restaurants, $20 restaurants. Ultimately, the sales process is the same. But what I would remember is that every single restaurants have the most important thing for restaurants is not the CPA at the start of the funnel. It is the lifetime value of that customer is the most important thing when it comes to restaurants. Definitely, always remember that once you acquired that customer for, say, 20 quid or £20 or $20, for instance, if they then come back one more time, it's £10 CPA. If they come back another time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So don't overcomplicate it by being too. Don't go, I'm only going to work with Italian sit down restaurants that have a value of £15 a head. It's just way too complicated. Work at restaurants. Gyms are great. Anything with a long term membership is great. There's a chance of a lot of repeat custom off the back of it. But yeah, don't overcomplicate it. There really isn't. There really isn't any bums on seats is what you want with restaurants.
Sounds good. Okay, so kind of next question. What is the best way for me as a freelancer to transition to starting an agency?
Don't do it. Stay as a freelancer. It's so much easier.
Okay, that's
I think it's the traditional thing. It goes back to the Google perspective. To be honest, I think there isn't an easy way, and to be honest with you, I don't think there's a right or wrong way either. Really, to be honest, if you're great at networking and you've got a great circle of people and you've got great events you can go to, brilliant. Fantastic. What I would say is that invest in Google Ads, invest in the website, focus less on building a fancy 5-step funnel that you send automated emails to from the back of it. That's irrelevant if you've got nothing at the start of the funnel. Get Google Ads, get your name out there. You will pick up inquiries and you will pick up in clients. You have to be absolutely terrible at what you do to not get inquiries off the back of. If you're number one or number two on paid Google Ads, that's the best way to start transitioning. Once then you get to the point of, I've got too much work on, or I can't handle this, then brilliant. Now you're now an agency. You're now looking to recruit people. That's it.
For what it's worth, with your Google advice, I'm actually going to try it a little bit later. I'm just going to do a plain page with just text on it. I'm going to write down every question I think that somebody could come up with, and I'm just going to answer them.
Yeah,
and then just do targeted Google ads.
That's why Google is a better product than. So obviously with social and paid social, there's so many different variations of ads you can do. You take away YouTube away from sort of the Google ad perspective. Facebook has a better inventory in terms of the stuff that you can actually promote to people, and you can be relatively targeted. But what Facebook doesn't tell you is there's the demand for certain keywords or certain interests at that moment in time. It's pure. It's ultimately educated guesswork when it comes to sort of definitely from a cold audience targeting perspective. The start of sort of what I tend to call it stage one of the buying process. But Google tell you what the search volumes are for what you want. You can even create a group of all the terms you want in that, and it'll tell you how much you have to spend to get a certain CPC on that demand. It's a tool that social people tend to forget because they think, Google's, especially entry level people who have learned Facebook ads from the start and it's their first foray into digital marketing, that Google is a far more from a customer acquisition perspective. My opinion is that Google is a lot better so much better for targeting, so much better for providing you with the relevant information you need to succeed to grow the business. But yeah, just write down you can even put it in there and it'll tell you, if you put social media agency near me, for instance, social media agency, it'll give you recommendations of what other sort of people, similar people are researching. It's a phenomenal tool from a business perspective, because people, like I'm admitting, you've admitted it as well, that if I can't find the answer to something, or I don't know what I'm looking for. If I'm going to go to a new city and look for a restaurant I need to go and eat in, or things to do in that town, what's the first thing people do? They go and Google it, and it's completely the same. I need something to do my Facebook ads, Google.com. You're not going to win the big oil companies and the big major US airlines who are doing it, but there's going to be people in your area who are going to do that. And you can even set up ads. If I lived in London, I can set up Google ads for where I'm from in Cardiff, for instance, and say I'm a social media agency in Cardiff. That's the best way of doing it. And then ultimately get to the point where I've got too much work on, too much stuff happening, I need to employ someone, and then bang, you're now an agency.
Right. Perfect. So 2 more questions here. Next one is, how much capital would you recommend in order to start an agency?
How much do you spend on Google, basically? Sorry,
I'm hearing a recurring theme.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme. If you've got as much money to spend on possible as Google, you'll grow. I'm definitely not suggesting that Google is the be all and end all, because you still have to do good work. You still need to have the right thing.
I think one thing that reason you come back to Google, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm being an idiot right now, is that Google's a lot more predictable than Facebook. You can get a lot of money. And I've seen, I like to joke around that like once a year I'll get a client that'll get like 30 or 50x return or something like that, right? Most people get like 3. But like, and that's 3 to 5 is like pretty good, actually. Like most people are pretty happy with that. But like, I'll get like one a year that'll get like 30 or 50x return, right? And it's just crazy. But Facebook, like, also you see a lot of people that just fail outright. It's way less predictable, but there's a huge market there. And obviously, you and I we spend a lot of time with Facebook ads, but and I believe in them. But I think that we keep coming back to Google because Google's way more predictable. It has tools, and it's a more kind of direct funnel, right? And at some point you'll have to invest in Facebook and build your brand with Facebook, and kind of put content out there and things like that. But Google's just a way faster way to start, right? You're tapping into something that people already want. You don't have to convince them that they want it and then convince them you're the person to give it.
Exactly. They're already looking for you at that moment in time, and it even tells you that people are looking for it. It's just, you need to be in front of them at the right time. In terms of capital, honestly, you can build a website for free. Squarespace or WordPress, or I think even Shopify. If you wanted to build it something on Shopify, for instance, it costs what, £20 a month or something like that. That's 240 quid a year is going to cost you. And that's less than what your phone bill costs. You build that yourself. Obviously you need living costs and whatnot. And I was pretty stupid in a sense that when I launched my agency, I didn't have backup, and I had a massive amount of London rent to pay. You could say that was more of a reason why I worked harder, because if I didn't work hard, I couldn't pay my rent. But ultimately, it was just a case of as my agency in front of as many people as it can be. Yes, if you're doing that, you'll start getting inquiries. That's what I'd say. But yeah, I probably wouldn't do it the way I did it again. Just for me, I know we've discussed this in the sort of the Facebook ad group buyers group before, that you need to give yourself a rest, and I didn't give myself a rest for a year and a half, and it was draining mentally, physically. It was very, very draining.
Yeah, I think work-life balance is definitely important. I think the hustle culture, which rightly or wrongly gets paired on Gary Vee, and actually, I mean, he recently at least has been saying a lot of things like like sleep and stuff like that. He's just more saying like, just get rid of like your binge watch sessions of The Crown or whatever and on Netflix, and like use that time and be more wise with your time. But I think it definitely, work-life balance is something really important, and something that you and I have spoken about a number of times. or by spoken about, I mean argued with people that are apparently working Christmas Day for their clients.
Yeah, exactly. Work when you're starting off, working 18 hours a day is not a right way to do it. And what I would say from a sort of a capital perspective, yeah, what's going to win you clients is either you physically calling or physically going to every single business around where you are to tell them about you, or you can sit behind a computer screen and put your stuff out there on Google and get more people seeing you on Google, and you'll pick up inquiries off the back of it. That's. I'm not suggesting that Google is the be all and end all of it, but from my experience, it allowed us as a business to stick to the actual work to retain the clients was the most important thing for us. Once we've acquired a customer, for whether it was we spent 10 grand on Google ads that month and we only won 5 grand a month's worth of clients off the back of it. The lifetime value of that customer means we need to keep them for a lot longer to get our money back off it. But if you win a client a grand a month, for instance, and they stay with you for a year, you've made 12 grand out of it. If you have a client that's paying you £500 a month, you have them for 3 years, the value of that customer is worth a lot more to you. And that's ultimately the game that we're in, is that repeat customers builds your business.
And if you don't have repeat customers, you have a deeper problem than just client acquisition.
Oh, definitely. If we've all been there with clients where, you've done everything in your power to keep hold of them, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you know you've done everything you possibly can. You even work with clients you think you're getting amazing results for, and they go, we're cutting budgets and whatnot, and we're trying to keep money here and there. That happens. But if you're having to acquire new customers every single month to stay alive, then you've got a serious problem here. And I think that's what people like Gary Vee and things is, they don't tend to cover that much. It's all about the hustle and the working hard and not. But there's not a lot of conversation about actually you've got to be good at what you do. And we tend to, I know we've had disagreements with people within the Facebook ad buy group where people are saying, I've spent all this money on Facebook ads and I've got this many click-through rates.
Can I do a quick aside and say that that one crazy thing to me is that there's two things that have been annoying me real quick aside is, number one, people assuming that spending a lot of money on Facebook somehow makes you qualified at Facebook ads. Is I see that as a must have spent XYZ dollars a month. They're like, why? You can't learn, at a lower level? You can't be good at Facebook ads, just have smaller clients. And the second thing is the people that demand to see dashboards of your clients on calls or whatever. I was like, does nobody sign NDAs? Am I the only one?
Yeah, it's illegal anyway. You can't. If I found out that an agency that I was working with was showing off my work to win more work from other people, I'd be kicking off. I would not be happy about that. But yeah, as we were saying, I totally agree with you on that. I think there's people out there that can spend £1 million badly, but there's people that can spend £1,000 very wisely. So we tend to forget that. But back to my point, what I was saying before, that this idea of it basically goes back to the product, basically, and whether you're offering a physical product across of an e-commerce store or whether you're selling your business services. People are so wrapped up in building the funnel and spending the right money at the right time, and is my retargeting on properly, and is my lookalike audiences full of the best people, and I'm still not getting results. And ultimately, what people tend to forget is that your product might be shit. That's probably the nicest way of saying it, is that people tend to lose sight of the building all these everything that's really fancy and whatnot. But ultimately, if you're not good at what you offer, or you're not offering anything good, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the drop shipping conversation we had about people, loads of them dying out, that ultimately you need a product that people like, and that's the ultimate thing. You can have as many fancy things in the world. It's like buying a Ferrari, for instance, with all the fancy trimmings on the side and new rims and whatnot.
That doesn't mean you're going to get girls to like you if you have
oh yeah, it is that. But if there's no engine in there to take it forward, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, right. That too.
Yeah, no, the girls thing probably does help, but ultimately, what I see quite a lot of is that people are complaining. Facebook ads are really expensive these days, and they're finding things to complain about, but ultimately it's down to the person to control the environment that you're going to be working in. The environment is ever changing, and sitting there moaning and saying, "Oh, well, Facebook's sending me really, really bad traffic." So, no, not sending you bad traffic. It's just what you're offering is crap.
I think I run into one person a week that thinks they've uncovered the world's largest ad fraud scheme.
Oh,
They're like, Facebook ads, they're all fake traffic. I'm like, my God, you should tell the SEC. Apparently, they've been perpetuating the world's largest Ponzi scheme.
oh, don't get me, don't get me. So I'm not going to sit here and and bitch off about people's sort of ideas of
I think it should be said that I mean, I guess I can't speak for you, but I have no particular loyalty to Mark Zuckerberg. Like, he makes an extra $1 billion. I don't like sleep better at night. This is shill. This is like trying to help people, not shill for Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what people is, and people tend to pick fights with things that ultimately is not their. It's in their control, but instead they just want to find reasons to complain about things because why isn't my fidget spinner selling on Shopify? I say, well, have you looked at Google demands for what you're looking for? Has it gone up or down? Is how competitive is your marketplace? Is the quality? How long is your delivery time? Is that putting people off? How good is your website? People are very quick to blame Facebook ads because they think they can just go in there and go, I want to target 18 to 65-year-olds in the USA that like toys. And I think it's brilliant. I'm gonna make some money.
Seems like a solid strategy to me.
If it was that easy, we wouldn't be needing podcasts. We wouldn't be needing anything. Everyone was logging online. Everyone would be billionaires. Do you know what I mean? If it was that easy, it'd be life would be fantastic. But what I tend to find in general consensus with people is that you're not going to win. You're not going to keep customers if your product is really bad, and people tend to forget that when it comes to social ads. Is that they think, oh well, because I'm doing this, that means I'm going to win loads of businesses, or I'm going to sell loads of products. It's like, hell no, it's just crap. I did it before. I started dropshipping agent print business about a year ago. Nothing massive, just spent a couple of grand on Facebook ads and whatnot, and the margins were terrible in it. And I thought, well, I can do it. I can get away with doing that sell them at £2 and offer delivery at £9. And if you looked at my ATCs, you'd be like, oh, brilliant, amazing. But ultimately, not hardly any of them converted because they had to pay the delivery charge. So, you live and learn. But then I was under no illusions that I was going to, I failed because my Facebook ad was sending me bad traffic. Ultimately, I was naive going into it thinking, I'm going to spend a couple of grand on ads and see how far I get. We'll never ever turn around and blame the tool. And don't get it wrong, things like Facebook ads and things do go wrong with it, and there are glitches, and fair enough. But 99.99% of the time, it's ultimately down to you as a person to manage the environment that you're in. And if you don't play by the rules, or you're not doing things correctly, or your product's crap, or your product's shit, ultimately you're not going to sell anything through paid ads, through social ads, and that's what people tend to lose sight of. And that's one thing that I fall out with people the most is they just don't like to be told that's right. Not the truth. Every other conceivable reason, bar the fact that what I'm offering or what I sell is shit. People don't like that. People don't like to be told. People don't like to be told that. And I think that once people come to terms with, oh, okay, maybe what I'm offering isn't good, they change it, and you'll see the world will change because they've already got the funnel, they've already got their way of selling their Facebook ads down to a T. That once they change the one thing that they needed to change, which is actually the thing that they physically sell, the actual service they actually sell, then that makes a massive difference. It's being self-aware and of what they're offering and what you're selling is the most important thing before you even consider getting into starting an agency or starting a e-commerce store or whatnot.
Yeah, well, I think that's very true and fantastic advice. So, kind of the last bit that I always kind of do is I let you pitch whatever you would like at the end of the podcast here. Whatever it is that you want. I've gotten everything from people. A lot of times people pitch their business or whatever, but I've had people pitch charities and everything else. So whatever you like, go ahead and promote it.
I didn't know. I mean, so I'm not in the agency game anymore. I'm not I'm not on the lookout for any clients anymore. I've left the agency life behind just for the time, maybe for a couple of years, taking on some in the big agency client side world at the moment. But yeah, I can't really think of anything else to promote. Really, I mean, if there's a charity that called the Marie Curie charity in Cardiff, looked after my granddad before he passed away many years ago. It's probably the only charity that I consistently give money to. So yeah, Marie Curie charity, I think it's called, based in the UK. Have a gander and give some of your well-earned money to them if you can. If anyone is looking for some consultancy work, you can send me an email. Don't worry about it. I'm not totally out of the game, but I'm definitely out of the big agency running an agency.
Sounds good. So if you're looking for a charity to donate to, Marie Curie. If you're looking for a great Facebook ads expert, reach out to Gareth Sutcliffe. We will go ahead and include a link to maybe your Facebook or something like that. Here.
Yeah,
okay.
No problem at all.
Fantastic. All right, well, Gareth, really, truly thank you for taking the time to chat today. I think there's an incredible amount of value here. A lot of you could basically skip from month 0 to month 18 in the agency journey by just listening to your advice.
Yeah, well, if it was that easy, then yeah. But I think I tried to condense it as much as possible. But no, it's been great talking to you. I think the 20-minute podcast is now an hour and 5 minutes, but it's been good.
They usually end up being 45 minutes to an hour or so. So, well, truly, thank you again for your time today. And for everybody out there listening, take this advice. If you're building an agency, this is absolutely huge. If you're building any really sort of services business, I think these are kind of indispensable lessons for you all. So take them, learn from them, kind of apply them to your life and go out there and be successful with building your agency. And happy marketing, everybody.